If you've ever wondered how innovation born from desperation changed the course of naval warfare in the Pacific, stay with us through this story, because by the end, you'll understand why one group of American bomber crews decided to do something that seemed absolutely insane. Fly so low at dawn that their propellers churned the ocean spray, and how that choice led to 35 enemy ships sent to the bottom in a single devastating campaign. Hit that subscribe button now, because stories like this, stories of courage and tactical genius that changed history, are what we bring you every single week. The year is 1942, and the Southwest Pacific is a Japanese lake. From Rabaul to Wewak, from the Bismarck Sea to the Coral Sea, enemy convoys move with near impunity, ferrying troops, ammunition, fuel, and food to garrisons that stand between General Douglas MacArthur and his promise to return to the Philippines. American bombers fly high, 10,000 feet, 12,000 feet, sometimes higher, dropping their bombs through layers of cloud and hope. The bombs fall in long arcs, and the ships below have time, precious seconds, to turn hard, to zigzag, to dance away from the splashes. The hit rate is abysmal, 1%, 2% on a good day. Crews come back exhausted, fuel tanks nearly empty, bomb bays vacant, and the intelligence officer asks how many hits, and the answer is always the same. We saw near misses, we saw splashes, we think maybe one hit. Meanwhile, the enemy convoys keep coming. General George Kenney, commanding the 5th Air Force, knows this cannot continue. He has brilliant crews, brave men who fly through flak and weather, and zero fighters, but bravery alone won't sink ships. He needs a new method, a tactical revolution. Enter Major Paul Irvin Gunn, a man the crews call Pappy, a former Navy pilot and merchant marine skipper turned Army Air Force's troublemaker and genius. Pappy Gunn looks at a B-25 Mitchell medium bomber and sees not a level bomber but a gunship. He envisions a nose bristling with forward-firing 50-caliber machine guns, 8 of them, 10, 12, a torrent of lead that can shred a ship's bridge, silence its anti-aircraft guns, kill its crew before they can react. Kenney listens, Kenney approves, and the modifications begin. In workshops in Australia and New Guinea, armourers and mechanics strip out the glazed bombardier nose, install metal panels, mount machine guns in banks, rig them to fire on a single trigger pull from the pilot's thumb. They add more guns in blisters on the fuselage sides. In the tail, the B-25 strafer is born. But firepower is only half the equation. The other half is altitude, or rather the lack of it. Kenney and his tacticians study the problem. High-altitude bombing doesn't work. Medium altitude puts you in the heart of the flak envelope with no better accuracy. So what if you go low? What if you go so low that the bombardier, if there were still a bombardier, could see the rivets on the deck plates, so low that the bomb has almost no time to fall? They experiment. They discover that if you come in at masthead height, sometimes 50 feet, sometimes less, and release a bomb with a delayed fuse, the bomb skips across the water like a stone on a pond, bounces once, twice, and slams into the hull below the waterline where the armor is thinnest, where one explosion can flood multiple compartments. They call it skip bombing. The Australians and British have used it. Now the Americans will perfect it. But there's another piece to the puzzle. Timing. Dawn. The sun rising in the east, low on the horizon, blinding the lookouts on enemy ships, turning the American bombers into black silhouettes against a molten sky, impossible to track, impossible to range with anti-aircraft fire. At dawn, the sea is often calm, the water glassy, which helps with the skip, with the ricochet. At dawn, the enemy combat air patrol hasn't yet launched in force, or if it has, the Zeros are still climbing to altitude, still forming up, not expecting trouble at sea level. At dawn, the Japanese radar, limited as it is in this theatre, struggles with sea clutter, with the low angle, with the signal lost in the noise of waves. At dawn, men are tired from the night watch, reflexes slower, coordination poor. Dawn is the hour of vulnerability. The 38th Bomb Group, known as the Sunsetters, and the 345th Bomb Group, the Air Apaches, become the tip of Kenney's spear. They train relentlessly. Pilots practice flying at wave-top height, learning to judge distance over water, where there are no landmarks, where the altimeter lags, where one moment of inattention means cartwheeling into the ocean in a fireball of gasoline and aluminum. They practice skip bombing runs over wrecks and rafts, learning the exact speed, 180 knots, 200 knots, the exact altitude, 50 feet, 60 feet, the exact angle, not quite level but nose slightly down to keep speed up, and the exact moment to release, the bomb rippling away, hitting the water with a white geyser, skipping again, and then the hull, and then the delayed fuse, 4 to 6 seconds, time for the bomb to punch through the plating and detonate deep inside, where it does maximum damage. They practice formation, flying in loose echelons, lead aircraft in front, wingmen spread wide to the sides, everyone low, everyone fast, so that the defensive fire from the ships is divided, confused, overwhelmed. They practice radio discipline, terse calls, targets at 12 o'clock, 4 ships, destroyer on the left, transport center and right, I'm taking the lead transport, red 2, you've got the destroyer, blue flight, cover R6. They practice coming home on fumes, navigating by dead reckoning and radio beacons, because at low altitude you burn fuel at a terrifying rate, and there are no second chances, no airfields between the target and home, except enemy-held strips that mean capture and death. The campaign begins in earnest in early 1943. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea in March is the proving ground. A Japanese convoy, 8 transports and 8 destroyers, steaming from Rabaul to Leh, carrying nearly 7,000 troops. Kenny throws everything at it. B-17s high to disrupt and distract, then the strafers low, then the A-20s and Australian Beaufighters. The strafers come in at dawn, skimming the water, the gunners in the nose holding the trigger down, the 50 caliber rounds walking across the decks, tearing into gun crews, smashing bridge windows, igniting ammunition. The bombs skip, hit. One transport shudders and lists, another erupts in flame. The convoy tries to scatter, but there's nowhere to go. Over 3 days, the Allies sink all 8 transports and 4 destroyers. The 3,500 troops who make it into the water are strafed. A brutal, controversial decision, but Kenny's orders are clear. No survivors to reinforce Leh. The strafer groups claim a significant share of the sinkings. They lose aircraft, crews, friends. They come back with holes in wings and fuselage, with hydraulic fluid leaking, with wounded men bleeding in the waist, but they come back knowing the tactic works. After Bismarck Sea, the campaign intensifies. The 5th Air Force launches sweeps against enemy shipping all along the New Guinea coast, targeting convoys off Wewak, Hansa Bay, Madang. Intelligence spots a convoy, 8 ships, 10 ships, 12 ships, moving at night, hoping to unload at dawn. But Kenny's crews are already airborne, timing their arrival for first light. Picture this, 19 B-25s in 3 flights, engines throttled back to reduce noise, running in from the south, so the sun rises behind them. The sea below is silver and pink in the pre-dawn glow. The crews are silent, tense. The pilot's hands are steady on the yoke. The co-pilot watches the airspeed indicator, calls out, 190 knots holding. The navigator in the nose, where the bombardier used to sit, has been replaced by 4 more machine guns. The radio operator in the waist checks his gun, a single 50 pointing out the side window. The gunner in the top turret scans for zeros. The tail gunner, the loneliest man on the plane, faces backward, watching their 6. Ahead on the horizon, smoke. Ships. The lead pilot keys his mic, voice calm, almost bored, but everyone knows he's amped, adrenaline singing in his veins. Tally-ho, 12 o'clock, 4 targets, destroyer leading, 3 transports in column. We're going for the transports. Red flight with me, blue flight take the tin can, keep it tight, keep it low, go. The formation spreads slightly, each aircraft picking its target. The pilot of the lead aircraft nudges the nose down, feels the speed building, 190, 200, 210, the ocean rushing beneath them, close enough to see the wave patterns, close enough to see a flash of something white, flying fish maybe, startled by the roar. His thumb hovers over the gun trigger on the yoke, closer. The transport grows in the windscreen, a squat, ugly thing, grey and rust-streaked, wake churning white behind it. He can see figures on the deck, tiny men running, pointing. He can see the anti-aircraft guns swiveling, barrels rising. Now! He presses the trigger and the world becomes noise and vibration. The 850 calibers in the nose fire in unison, 2,000 rounds per minute per gun, a river of tracers lancing out, red streaks in the dim light, sparking and ricocheting off the steel deck, punching through thin bulkheads, shredding flesh. The co-pilot is counting, 3, 2, 1, pickle, and the pilot thumbs the bomb release. 2 500-pound bombs drop from the racks under the wings, fused for 4-second delay. They hit the water 30 yards short of the ship. White columns of spray, then skip, bound upward like flat stones, hit the water again, skip again, and smash into the hull just above the waterline. The bomber roars over the mast so close the pilot instinctively ducks, though there's nothing to duck. The canopy is closed. He pulls up hard, climbing, jinking left, and behind him the bombs detonate deep inside the transport. Two massive concussions, muffled by water and steel, and the entire amidship section lifts, buckles, collapses. Secondary explosions follow, fuel or ammunition, and black smoke mushrooms into the dawn sky. The wingman has fired, dropped, is pulling up and right. The second transport is burning. The third has slowed, turning, trying to run, but blue flight is on the destroyer, guns hammering, and a bomb skip lands, and the destroyer's bow disintegrates in a flash of orange and white. The sky is full of tracers now, the Japanese firing back, 20mm cannon rounds arcing up, a few heavy machine guns, but the strafers are too fast, too low, already past, already climbing and turning for a second run if needed. Radio chatter, quick and clipped. Blue 3 is hit, losing oil pressure, heading home. Red 4, you've got a 0 at your 7 o'clock high. I see him, engaging. The top turret gunner swivels, tracks, fires a burst. The 0 pulls up, decides not to follow into the flak. Wise choice. Below, the transports are dying. One is already on its side, men jumping into the water. Another is low in the water, stern first. The third is dead in the water, listing, burning from stem to stern. The destroyer is stopped, bow gone, and as the strafers circle they see the stern rise, and the ship slides backward into the sea, boilers exploding underwater, a rumbling that shakes the air. 4 ships in 5 minutes. The cost, 1 B-25 damaged and heading home, trailing smoke but still flying. 1 crew with a wounded gunner, shrapnel in his leg, tourniquet applied. He'll make it. No one killed this mission. Not today. But there are missions where the cost is higher. Over Wewak, a formation of strafers catches a convoy of 6 ships, but the escort is alert, the flak is heavy, and a B-25 takes a 20mm round through the cockpit. The co-pilot is killed instantly. The pilot, blood streaming from a scalp wound, flies the aircraft back one-handed, lands it at Dobodura with the co-pilot's body slumped beside him, and then he sits on the wing and cries, and no one says anything because they all know it could have been them. Over Hansa Bay, the Japanese have moved in light cruisers, real warships with real anti-aircraft batteries, and the strafers come in at dawn expecting cargo ships and instead find a wall of steel and fire. 2 B-25s are hit immediately. 1 crashes into the sea in a spray of gasoline flame. No parachutes, 6 men gone. The other makes it back to the coast and ditches off the beach at Finschhafen, and the crew is picked up by a PT boat, battered and burned but alive. The cruisers survive, battered, burning, but they survive, and the intelligence officer writes in his report, enemy defense is increasing, tactics must evolve. The tactics do evolve. The strafer groups start coordinating even more closely with A-20 Havocs and Australian Beaufighters, creating a layered attack. First the fighters and light bombers to suppress the flak, draw the fire, then the strafers to deliver the killing blow, then the fighters again to cover the withdrawal. They start using parafrags, small fragmentation bombs with parachutes, dropped from low altitude to clear the decks before the main skip bombing run. The tiny parachutes blossom, the bombs drift down, and the decks erupt in a spray of shrapnel, killing exposed crews, silencing light guns, creating chaos. Then the big bombs skip, and the ship is doomed. They start timing their attacks with weather, coming in through rain squalls, appearing out of the murk at the last second, dropping, hitting, vanishing. They start using radio intelligence, breaking Japanese codes, knowing when a convoy will sail, what route it will take, and they're waiting. Dawn ambush, no escape. By mid-1943, the campaign is in full swing, and the tally is mounting. 5 ships in one attack off Madang, 3 ships off Cape Gloucester, 7 ships in a coordinated strike on a barge convoy near Rabaul. Not big transports, but vital supply barges, each one sunk or destroyed. The numbers are tracked meticulously, or as meticulously as possible, in the chaos of war. After-action reports are filed, claims are made, photographs are taken from gun cameras, reconnaissance flights overfly the target areas to confirm wrecks. The total claimed by the strafer groups in this campaign, stretching roughly from March to September 1943, reaches 35 ships sunk, transports, destroyers, cargo vessels, tankers, mine layers, 35 hulls on the bottom, 35 convoys disrupted, 35 cargoes of men and materiel lost. The Japanese South Pacific supply line, once robust, is now a death trap. Convoys are rerouted, sail at night only, sail with heavier escorts, but it doesn't matter. The strafers find them. The strafers sink them. Inside the aircraft, the experience is visceral, overwhelming. The smell of oil and gasoline and hot metal, the vibration of the engines deep in the chest, rattling the bones, the roar when the guns fire, a sound so loud it drowns out thought, the jolt when the bombs release, the slight rise as the aircraft lightens by 1,000 pounds, the flash of water spray across the windscreen as they skim the waves, the lurch as flak explodes nearby, black puffs in the air, the shrapnel pinging off the fuselage sounding like hail on a tin roof, the glance at the instrument panel, oil pressure good, hydraulic pressure good, fuel gauge dropping, always dropping, the radio voice tense, Red 2 is hit, Red 2 is hit, I'm losing altitude, the frantic scanning of the sky. Where is he there, low and trailing smoke, heading for shore, will he make it? The moment of release after the attack, adrenaline crash, hands shaking, realizing you're soaked in sweat, realizing you're alive, realizing half your squadron is alive, and the empty spaces in the formation on the way home are where friends used to be. In the ready tent, the debriefs are exhaustive. The intelligence officer wants to know everything. What ships, what size, what armament, how many hits, what kind of explosions, what kind of secondary fires were there, zeros, what altitude did they attack from, did anyone go down, did anyone see shoots? The pilots and crews answer, sometimes animated, talking over each other, gesturing with their hands, sometimes quiet, staring at nothing, smoking cigarette after cigarette. The numbers are tallied, the claims are recorded. 35 ships. It's a number that will be debated later, as all such numbers are. Victory credits in wartime are notoriously imprecise. Multiple aircraft attack the same target. Who gets the credit? A ship is damaged, but limps to port and is repaired. Do you count it? A ship sinks but was already damaged by a submarine or previous air attack. Who sunk it? The official records will say 35 ships credited to the 5th Air Force strafer groups in this campaign. Post-war analysis by historians, comparing Allied claims to Japanese records, will adjust some numbers up, some down. But the strategic effect is undeniable. By late 1943, Japanese logistics in the Southwest Pacific are in shambles. Garrisons are starving, running out of ammunition, cut off. MacArthur's advance accelerates. The human cost is equally undeniable. Over the course of the campaign, the strafer groups lose dozens of aircraft, hundreds of men. Some are killed in action, shredded by flak, drowned in the ocean, incinerated in flames. Some are wounded horrifically, missing limbs, blinded, burned. Some are taken prisoner, and for many that's a death sentence, the Japanese treatment of POWs in the Pacific being what it is. Some simply vanish, aircraft lost over open ocean, no radio call, no wreckage found, just gone. The replacement crews arrive, fresh-faced and terrified, and the veterans, the survivors, try to teach them, try to keep them alive, but it's never enough. War chews through men. Pappy Gunn, the architect of the strafer, survives the war, though not unscathed. He flies combat missions himself, old for a combat pilot, relentless, driven. He's shot down once, rescued, back in the air days later. His innovations spread. By 1944, every theater is using some form of low-level attack tactics, informed by the lessons learned in the Southwest Pacific. The British use it over the Channel and the North Sea. The Americans use it in the Mediterranean. The Russians use it on the Eastern Front. The skip bombing technique, proven in the crucible of the Bismarck Sea and Wewak and Hansa Bay, becomes standard doctrine for anti-shipping strikes. Post-war, the tactic influences the development of dedicated maritime strike aircraft, the jet-powered bombers and torpedo bombers of the Cold War, designed from the outset to fly low, hit hard, sink ships. But the real legacy is human. The men who flew those missions, who survived, carry it with them forever. They remember the friends who didn't make it. They remember the sound of the guns, the smell of the smoke, the sight of ships burning and sinking, and sometimes in nightmares they see the men in the water, the enemy sailors, and they remember that those were men too, sons and fathers and brothers, and war is horror no matter which side you're on. They remember the fear, the gut-clenching terror of flying at 50 feet with flak bursting all around, knowing that one mistake, one lucky shot, and you're dead. And they remember the pride, the fierce pride of doing something impossible, something that changed the war, something that saved Allied lives by shortening the campaign, by cutting the enemy's supply lines, by proving that innovation and courage can overcome any obstacle. In the decades after the war, reunions are held. The survivors gather, old men now, and they talk, and they drink, and they cry, and they laugh. They tell stories, the same stories, over and over, polishing them smooth like river stones. They toast the absent friends, the ones who never got old, the ones who stayed forever young in memory, forever brave, forever 22. They argue about details, who flew which mission, which ship went down first, who got credit for what. It doesn't matter. What matters is they were there. They did it. 35 ships, or 30 or 40, the exact number is irrelevant compared to the fact that they changed the way war at sea was fought. Today, historians study those missions with awe. Modern pilots, flying modern aircraft with GPS and laser-guided munitions and computer targeting, look at the old grainy photographs of B-25s skimming the waves, bombs skipping, and they shake their heads in wonder. To do what those men did with the technology they had, the courage it required, the skill, the sheer audacity of it, it's almost unbelievable. Almost. But it happened. It's documented. The wreckage of those 35 ships, or however many it truly was, still lies on the ocean floor off New Guinea, off Rabaul, off Wewak, slowly corroding, slowly being reclaimed by the sea, monuments to a campaign of innovation and blood. So why did one bomber group start flying lower at dawn and sink 35 enemy ships in one campaign? Because they had to. Because the old methods weren't working. Because desperate times demanded desperate measures. Because some brilliant minds, Kenny and Gunn and others, saw a way to turn disadvantage into advantage, to use speed and surprise and firepower to overcome superior numbers. And because hundreds of young men, scared but determined, climbed into their aircraft every morning and flew into hell and came back, or didn't, and did it again the next day and the day after that, until the job was done. That's why. That's the answer. That's the story. If this story moved you, if you learned something, if you want to hear more about the unsung heroes and the forgotten battles and the tactical innovations that changed history, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button, because we're just getting started. There are 1,000 stories like this, stories of courage and sacrifice and ingenuity, stories that deserve to be told, stories that deserve to be remembered, and we're going to tell them all.